In the small, dusty village of Niaru, under the relentless African sun, lived Amina, a young woman whose life had been a tapestry of hardship and quiet resilience, often whispered about by villagers who cruelly labeled her useless after her husband abandoned her when their child, little Kofi, was barely a year old. Each morning, she would wake before the sun, her bare feet pressing into the warm, cracked earth as she fetched water from the distant well, balancing the heavy clay pot atop her head with a grace learned from generations of women before her, her mind always racing with worries about how she would provide for Kofi, who was too young to understand why other children had fathers while he had none. Yet he smiled anyway, his innocent laughter breaking through the suffocating weight of shame and gossip that followed them like shadows. And Amina would often sit by the small window of their modest hut, tracing patterns in the dust on the floor as memories of her husband haunted her, the promises he had made dissolving like morning mist, leaving only a bitter taste of betrayal. Yet, despite the whispers, she worked tirelessly in the fields, her hands blistered and cracked, tending to crops under the watchful eyes of the elders who would shake their heads, murmuring that she would never succeed alone, while she sang softly to Kofi stories of the ancestors, of warriors and mothers who rose from nothing, infusing hope into his young heart. And at night, when the village slept, she would sit by the fire and plan ways to earn enough to send Kofi to school, knowing that education was their only path out of judgment and poverty. Even as doubt gnawed at her spirit, and one fateful afternoon, while gathering firewood near the edge of the forest, she stumbled upon an injured dove with a wing bent unnaturally, and as she cradled it in her hands, she felt a strange warmth, a whisper of destiny that perhaps this small act of care could ripple into something greater, something that would prove the villagers wrong. And as she nursed the dove back to health over the coming days, the bird's gentle coos filled their tiny hut with a sense of peace that neither gossip nor despair could touch. And word of her kindness began to spread subtly through the village, as neighbors observed her resilience and the way Kofi flourished under her devoted care, planting the first seeds of respect among those who had once doubted her. Yet Amina remained humble, her heart focused not on revenge or recognition, but on survival, on nurturing her son, and on proving to herself, above all, that the label useless was a lie she would quietly dismantle, one small victory at a time, never knowing that the dove she had saved carried a blessing that would soon alter the trajectory of her life, intertwining with the threads of fate and opening doors she had not dared to dream existed. And as dusk painted the sky with fiery hues, Amina whispered to Kofi that no one could define their worth but themselves, a lesson he would carry into adulthood, unknowingly preparing both mother and son for the trials and triumphs that lay ahead in the chapters yet to unfold. Days turned into weeks, and Amina's life became a delicate balance between survival and hope. As she navigated the harsh realities of village life while keeping Kofi's laughter alive in their small hut, the villagers' whispers growing quieter as they began noticing that despite the hardships, her crops thrived and her son's cheeks glowed with health and joy. Yet the journey was far from easy, for one morning, a merchant from a distant town arrived, offering work in the market for anyone willing to carry heavy goods from sunrise to sunset. And although the pay was meager, Amina took the opportunity without hesitation, leaving Kofi in the care of an elderly neighbor, her heart aching with worry and guilt, but knowing that sacrifice was necessary for their survival. Each day, as she trudged through dusty roads, carrying baskets heavier than her own frame, she felt the sting of exhaustion, her muscles screaming for rest. Yet she pressed on, driven by the silent promise she had made to Kofi that he would never feel the weight of their poverty as a barrier to his dreams. And while she labored, she met other women, widows and single mothers like herself, who shared stories of betrayal and resilience, creating bonds that became lifelines of support and encouragement. Their laughter and shared tears strengthening her spirit in ways that whispered of community and unspoken solidarity. And as the sun dipped low in the sky each evening, she returned to Kofi with small treasures from the market, a handful of grain, a piece of cloth, or a sweet fruit, watching his eyes light up as if she had given him the world. And those moments reminded her that love could transform even the smallest gestures into something monumental. And one evening, as they sat beneath the mango tree that shaded their hut, the dove she had once rescued perched nearby, its soft coos like a lullaby. Amina reflected on how far they had come, realizing that the label useless carried no weight where courage, determination, and compassion existed. And yet, she sensed that a greater challenge awaited her when a letter arrived, delivered by a stranger on a tired horse, sealed with unfamiliar symbols and bearing news that could change their lives forever, stirring a mixture of fear and anticipation in her heart. And though she did not yet understand the magnitude of what was to come, she held Kofi close, whispering promises of protection and perseverance, the strength of a mother's love shielding them from the uncertainties of the path ahead. And that night, as the village slept under a star-filled sky, she dreamed not of escape but of triumph, envisioning a life where respect replaced ridicule, and where she and Kofi could rise beyond the limitations imposed by the world, ready to face whatever destiny had in store, with the quiet but unshakable belief that their story was only beginning. The following weeks brought unexpected twists, as the letter Amina had received revealed that a distant relative she had never met had passed away, leaving her the caretaker of a small inheritance, an old, half-abandoned house at the edge of the next village, along with a modest plot of land that had once been fertile. And while the news sparked a flicker of hope, it also awakened fear and uncertainty, for she knew the journey to claim what was rightfully hers would not be easy, and the villagers, who had once dismissed her as useless, watched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism as she prepared to leave with Kofi, packing the few belongings they owned into a worn basket, the weight of their meager possessions a reminder of the life they had fought to survive. And as they traveled along the dusty path lined with acacia trees, Amina felt the tug of doubt gnawing at her confidence, wondering if the land would be as fruitful as promised, if the house would provide shelter from the harsh rains, and whether the whispers of the past would continue to shadow them in this new place. Yet each time she glanced at Kofi, running ahead with his small feet kicking up dust and laughing freely despite the hardships, she remembered that their strength lay in their bond, in the love that no judgment could touch. And upon reaching the plot, they found the house weathered but standing, its walls cracked, and the garden overgrown with weeds and wildflowers, a canvas of opportunity waiting for careful hands to transform it. and with a mixture of fear, hope, and determination, Amina rolled up her sleeves and began clearing the land. Her hands bleeding and her back aching, yet she sang softly to Kofi, recounting tales of the ancestors who had turned barren lands into thriving homesteads, instilling in him the courage to believe in possibility. And neighbors from the new village began to notice her efforts, some extending hands of help, while others muttered doubts. Yet Amina remained undeterred, each day a testament to her resilience. And as weeks turned into months, the once forgotten land began to bear fruits and vegetables. The house gradually restored, its walls no longer echoes of despair but of promise. And Kofi thrived alongside her, learning the value of hard work, humility, and patience. And one evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky with fiery reds and oranges, a wealthy trader passing through offered to buy a portion of her produce. Astonished at the quality of the crops and the care evident in every plant, and Amina realized that the same people who had called her useless now looked at her with respect. Yet she felt no bitterness, only quiet satisfaction, knowing that the transformation was not about proving them wrong, but about proving to herself and to Kofi that they were capable of greatness. And as they sat outside the house that night, the rescued dove now perched on the roof, cooing softly under the stars, Amina whispered to Kofi that life had a way of rewarding patience, courage, and love, and that the path ahead, though uncertain, was theirs to shape, a lesson that would echo through the rest of their lives, preparing them for challenges and blessings that awaited in the chapters still to come. Months passed, and Amina's life began to flourish in ways she had never imagined. Her small plot, now abundant with vegetables, fruits, and herbs, the house repaired and welcoming, and yet prosperity brought new challenges, for word of her success spread to the neighboring villages, attracting envy and hidden malice, as some women whispered behind her back, questioning how a single mother, once deemed useless, could now manage so much. And even some villagers, who had once doubted her, eyed her harvests and the attention of traders with suspicion, while Amina herself remained focused on nurturing Kofi's dreams, teaching him not only to read and write, but also to observe the land, tend to the crops, and understand the delicate balance of nature, instilling lessons of patience, perseverance, and humility. And one fateful morning, as she prepared to take produce to the market, she noticed a stranger watching from the edge of the road, a tall man with piercing eyes, carrying a leather satchel, whose gaze lingered on the farm with an intensity that made her uneasy. Yet curiosity and courage led her to approach him, and he introduced himself as a representative of a cooperative of traders seeking reliable farmers, offering to buy her produce in bulk and provide seeds, tools, and training for a larger harvest, an opportunity that could transform their lives completely. And though the offer thrilled her, Amina hesitated, wary of promises and aware of the deceit that often lurked behind smiles. Yet, after consulting Kofi, who insisted she deserved the chance to succeed, she accepted, and over the following weeks, their lives changed dramatically as the cooperative provided tools, fertilizers, and knowledge, teaching them modern farming techniques while respecting the traditions she had inherited. And soon, their produce reached markets beyond their village, drawing admiration and attention from towns far away. And Amina, who had once felt powerless, now stood tall. Her confidence rooted not in pride, but in the proof that determination, love, and integrity could overcome even the harshest judgments. And yet, amidst the success, she remained humble, sharing her bounty with neighbors in need, teaching Kofi that wealth was not measured in coins, but in the hearts touched and lives uplifted. And one evening, as they celebrated the first large shipment of vegetables sent to the distant market, the dove she had rescued years ago landed on the windowsill, as if acknowledging their journey. And Amina realized that the trials they had endured had strengthened them, that the whispers of uselessness had no power over a heart fortified by courage. And as the sun set, painting the sky with gold and purple, she promised Kofi that no matter what challenges or envy came their way, they would face them together, their bond and resilience, the true legacy of their journey. And in that moment, surrounded by the fruits of her labor, the sounds of the bustling village in the distance, and the soft coos of the dove, Amina understood that they had not only survived, but were beginning to thrive, and that the chapters yet to unfold held even greater lessons, adventures, and blessings, all woven into the tapestry of their lives, ready to be discovered with hearts unafraid and spirits unbroken. By the time the rains had returned to the hills surrounding their village, Amina and Kofi had become a symbol of resilience and quiet triumph. Their once modest plot, now a flourishing farm with rows of healthy crops, colorful fruits, and herbs that attracted traders and villagers alike. And while whispers of her uselessness had long faded, replaced by respect and admiration, Amina remained grounded, teaching Kofi that true success was measured not by wealth or recognition, but by character, compassion, and the ability to uplift others. And one morning, a letter arrived from the cooperative inviting her to a regional gathering of farmers to share her story, an opportunity she had never dreamed possible. And as she prepared to leave with Kofi, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here from the harsh judgment of their village, the lonely days fetching water and tending crops, the small victories with the rescued dove, the hardships of market labor, and the discovery of the inheritance that became a foundation for growth, to the alliances forged with the cooperative and the steady blossoming of their farm into a beacon of hope and sustainability. And during the gathering, she stood before farmers, traders, and villagers from distant regions, recounting her story with humility and courage, speaking of the challenges of being a single mother, the cruelty of judgment, and the power of perseverance. Her voice strong and steady as Kofi sat beside her, proud and attentive, listening to the tale of his mother's resilience. And as the crowd applauded, Amina felt a warmth in her chest, a confirmation that the label useless had never defined her, that every act of love, patience, and courage had forged a legacy that would endure beyond gossip and misfortune. And upon returning home, their farm continued to thrive, now also serving as a small learning center where other struggling mothers and their children could gain skills, share stories, and find hope, creating a ripple effect of empowerment throughout the villages. And one quiet evening, as she watched Kofi play under the mango tree, the dove she had rescued years ago perched gracefully nearby. She realized that every trial, every whispered insult, every sleepless night had led to this moment of profound fulfillment and purpose. And Amina understood that their journey was more than survival, it was transformation. a testament to the unyielding strength of a mother's love, the courage to rise above rejection, and the belief that destiny favors those who persevere with integrity and heart. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold, crimson, and violet, she whispered a promise to herself and Kofi that they would continue to grow, nurture, and inspire, proving that even the most rejected and doubted souls could bloom brilliantly, leaving behind a legacy of hope, resilience, and the unwavering truth that no one is ever truly useless when love and determination guide their path.